Yeah, let's
Yeah,
talk
let's do it.
about World Central Kitchen. It's on a lot of people's minds. And first, let me just point to our colleague Tamara Nassar did a really great background piece on World Central Kitchen that's up at the Electronic Intifada and published earlier today. Um, and I just want to talk about some of the things I've been looking into and seeing. Some of this is in Tamara's article, but there are other things that have been coming up that I've been looking at. I mean, the first thing to say is that to express nothing but sympathy and horror for the murders of the 7 people associated with World Central Kitchen who are clearly targeted, and they include Saifuddin Abu Taha, a Palestinian from Gaza, and Zomi Frankham, a longtime aid worker with World Central Kitchen from Australia. And there are 3 British people who've been identified as former members of the British military, special services, who have been identified by World Central Kitchen as part of their security team. And there is Damien Sobol, a relief worker from Poland who has a history with World Central Kitchen. And the 7th person is Jacob Flickinger, a dual US-Canadian citizen. And we're just learning now, he's identified as part of the relief team. We've just learned while we've been on air, really, that he is a former member of the Canadian military who was deployed in Afghanistan prior to 2019. And he doesn't appear to have a long history with World Central Kitchen, but what's coming out in the media now is that he did previously go on a mission with them in Mexico after the major hurricane there last year. So that's what we've learned about these people. And I've been looking into their backgrounds because I want to know who they are. And I want to be clear that, there's a lot of sort of speculation about why are former British Special Forces people in Gaza. Does this indicate something bigger? And I've also been contacted by international journalists who I respect, who've said to me, it's very common for major news organizations or relief agencies to hire these types of former military people for security. And these 3 British military people work for a company called Solace Global, which is based in Poole in Dorset. It's quite opaque. It's founded by another former British Special Forces person called David Peach. There's very little information about him I could find. His photo, the senior team page on the Solace Global website does not even list his name or show his photo. I couldn't find a photo of him anywhere, although he is listed in the UK Companies Registry as the principal of this company. So that's to say there are some sort of weird questions about this, but I don't think that should be our focus necessarily, because yes, it's plausible that these are just security people, although the question then arises, were they armed? Did Israel allow them to bring weapons in? And that by itself would be very unusual. But I don't want to say, I don't want that to be the focus, because I really think the bigger questions about World Central Kitchen are the ones we should focus on. And here I want to sort of go back to what we know about World Central Kitchen and the role it has been playing in Gaza, and why I think we should be quite wary of this organization, even though we express horror for the murder of these 7 individuals who certainly did not in any way deserve that fate. But let's go back to October 16th. Of course, people will know that World Central Kitchen is headed or figureheaded by this celebrity chef from Spain called Jose Andres. And let's go back, Tamara, if we can show the tweet that I did, or at least the media in it, of his tweet from October 16th of this year. This is Jose Andres, the founder of World Central Kitchen, and this is in Spanish, but I'll summarize what he's saying here. And that there's a longer message than is shown on the screen. But he is responding to Iona Ballara, who is a Spanish minister who on October 16th expressed utter horror at Israel's bombardment and massacres of Palestinians in Gaza that had already killed thousands of people, the majority of them women or children. Remember, this is now 9 days after the events of October 7th. And what Jose Andres is expressing outrage at the minister for saying this, and saying that what Israel is doing in Gaza is defending its citizens. So he is justifying the genocide as Israel defending its citizens. And when I posted this, I had some people come back to me and say, oh, he can be forgiven because, you know, it was the early days and people didn't know what was going on, and maybe he was naive or he wasn't paying attention. No, these are excuses. Let's remember, the minister there who he's responding to is saying exactly what's happening. And he actually demands that she be fired for standing up against Israel's barbarity. And this tweet, the reason I mentioned the date, October 16th, is because a day before this, so on October 15th, 2023, 800 international genocide scholars had published a statement warning about genocide in Gaza, and that included prominent Holocaust scholars. So the reason I'm pointing this out is because Jose Andres knew this or should have known it, and there's no excuse for that. And I do not want to permit anyone to rewrite history and say, oh, we didn't know. There were already people screaming from the rooftops that this was genocide, while Jose Andres, celebrity chef Jose Andres, was defending Israel's attack on Gaza. Now, then we have to ask, how come World Central Kitchen was permitted by the Israelis to go into Gaza while other humanitarian aid, particularly UNRWA, is being kept out or impeded by Israel? Hundreds, thousands of trucks lined up, unable to get in, and yet World Central Kitchen is allowed to come in by land, apparently, and by sea. And remember what happened to the Mavi Marmara when it tried to reach Gaza by sea. Israel massacred people on that ship. And let's take a look at the reporting from the New York Times. This is a couple of weeks ago. These are just a few highlights that the Israeli military helped World Central Kitchen's operation, providing security and coordination. And they actually helped World Central Kitchen. The Israeli military helped World Central Kitchen build a jetty out of the rubble of people's homes destroyed by the Israeli military. And there may still, some people were saying there may still have been bodies in that rubble that had not been recovered, that was being used to build World Central Kitchen's jetty. And even after this attack, so before and after the attack by the Israelis, what is being called friendly fire against World Central Kitchen's team, the Israeli military has been saying, oh, we love World Central Kitchen, their work is vital, and, you know, please forgive us, it was an accident. Of course, it wasn't an accident, but the Israelis continue to express support for World Central Kitchen while blocking UNRWA. And this is the thing I want to point out, because as you can see there, that sentence in the New York Times, in a venture that Western officials hope will play a part in easing the enclave's food deprivation. Well, why is there food deprivation in Gaza? It's because Israel is keeping the trucks out, keeping UNRWA out. So if Israel wanted to ease the so if the Western officials, whoever they are, wanted to ease the starvation in Gaza, if Israel wanted to ease the starvation in Gaza, it's really easy. All you got to do is stop impeding the aid convoys. Yesterday, our friend Chris Gunnis, the former spokesperson from UNRWA, who we've had on this live stream, tweeted about how once again Israel has blocked an UNRWA aid convoy into northern Gaza, where the starvation is at its worst. And a week ago, Israel announced that it would not allow any more UNRWA aid convoys into northern Gaza. The United States has still not restored its funding to UNRWA. Germany, the second biggest donor after the United States, has still not restored its funding to UNRWA. So the suspicion here is that, and I think with good reason, that World Central Kitchen was being used as an effort to replace UNRWA, but not to replace UNRWA, the UN Agency for Palestine Refugees, with an adequate substitute, but to replace it with a PR operation so that people in Canada, people in Britain, people in Italy, people in other countries will say, oh, something is being done and people are being fed. But we heard Abu Bakr Abed, and we didn't know he was going to say that. We didn't ask him about World Central Kitchen. We didn't say to him, we want you to talk about it. He spontaneously came on this live stream and said that, you know, to the extent that World Central Kitchen is there, it is a drop in the ocean, and people are not getting what they need. You know, World Central Kitchen is reportedly providing, I don't know what it is. Let's be generous and say 100,000 meals a day in Gaza. There are 2.3 million people in Gaza. If everyone in Gaza only needs to eat once, you need 2.3 million meals a day. But people in Gaza need to eat more than once a day. So we're talking about millions upon millions of meals per day. And the only agency that is able to provide that is UNRWA, the one that Israel is blocking, the one that the United States and Germany are defunding in order to bring down its operations. So we have to be really suspicious about what World Central Kitchen is up to. And the point is this, because I've had pushback about this. People say to me, but Ali, something is better than nothing. You know, you see the images of World Central Kitchen feeding people, handing food to people. Do you not want those people to eat? Of course I want them to eat. Would I begrudge to people in Gaza to get a hot meal from any source? Of course not. But the point is, when you see those public relations images of a few people eating, what you are not seeing is the far greater number of people, the millions of people being starved because UNRWA is being sabotaged and destroyed by Israel and the United States deliberately. And then yesterday we got the news that President Biden personally called Jose Andres, Chef Jose Andres, to offer his condolences and support after the murder by Israel, probably with weapons provided by Joe Biden himself, of these 7 workers. And then, has Joe Biden ever called the head of UNRWA? More than 150 UNRWA workers have been murdered by Israel since the start of this genocide. I never heard that Joe Biden called the head of UNRWA and offered his condolences. On the contrary, Joe Biden continues to do everything he can to sabotage UNRWA. And US spokespersons continue to smear UNRWA. So there is something very suspicious going on here with World Central Kitchen. And I'll point this out. On March, because Palestinians know this and they talk about this, even if we're not talking about it in the rest of the world, people understood World Central Kitchen. How was this boat from World Central Kitchen allowed? Why is Israel helping World Central Kitchen build a jetty or a pier or whatever it was. This has justifiably raised suspicions among Palestinians that this is all a Trojan horse to bring in some sort of alternative to UNRWA, maybe some new form of Palestinian Authority collaborationist regime under the cover of humanitarian support, under the cover of a humanitarian charity that is extremely close to the White House. How close is it to the White House? Well, you just heard that Joe Biden called Jose Andres personally, but let's take a look at this video from February. This is a propaganda video put out by the White House that shows Jose Andres meeting with Doug Emhoff, who is called the second gentleman. He's the husband of Kamala Harris, the vice president of the United States, to promote a Joe Biden political initiative. And there's Jose Andres. That's how close he is to the White House. And this agency, World Central Kitchen, this just charity, has gone from like nothing 3 years ago to raising $519 million, $500 billion in 2022, according to its latest available filings with the United States government.
$500 million, not half a trillion.
$500 million, and that they went from a few million like 5 years ago to $500 million right now, and this and all of this comes as the efforts to dismantle and destroy UNRWA escalate. So these are the things that I think we have to pay attention to with this story.
Yeah.
I've just got a couple of numbers here too, just for people to get a little bit of perspective. There were on that barge, the World Central Kitchen barge with the jetty, there was 12 trucks of aid on that barge. All of the airdrops that happened in the first 3 weeks of March added up to 50 trucks airdropped. The Israeli concentration camp guards at this moment are saying that they can process 45 trucks an hour crossing the border on the land crossing. So 12 trucks on the barge, 50 trucks total for all the airdrops. And the Israelis themselves are saying that they can process 45 trucks an hour. And we know before that the siege level, the starvation level that Dr. G was talking about, the caloric intake measurements under the siege was 500 trucks a day.
Minimum.
So
yeah.
These are really propaganda stunts. If they're not Trojan horses for something far worse, they're at least propaganda stunts that are glossing over the fact that the ground crossings are the way to get aid into the starving people of Gaza who are in desperate circumstances and don't have weeks and months to debate or to figure out alternative methods. The aid distribution networks in Gaza exist and have existed and have been eliminated by the Israelis. There's no substitute for them. And these numbers
John,
are the airdrops and the barges. They're just smoke and mirrors.
And John, and actually one of the statements on World Central Kitchen's website that I read actually says that they were able to get some trucks in, which suggests that the Israelis are preferentially allowing World Central Kitchen to bring trucks in while continuing to impede and block the far vaster amounts of aid that other agencies are trying to bring in. And what I wanted to say earlier, I sort of went off in another direction, but a very important point is that, I mean, a question people are asking as well, if these people are working with Israel, why would Israel attack them? And that's the big question. And I think that there are a couple of possible answers. One, which comes from the Israeli military itself. You know, they claim, it was a deconfliction era. But a story in Haaretz last night actually includes leaks from the Israeli army claiming that the reason is because there's just no discipline. There's no command and control, and the commanders on the ground do whatever they want. Well, that's very plausible because we know that they do. Another possibility, I mean, this is speculative, is that a couple of days before this attack, World Central Kitchen had tried to distance itself publicly from the suspicion that it was being used as a Trojan horse to replace UNRWA. And they actually put out a statement saying, we're not there to replace any agency. We work with UNRWA, we work with OCHA, which is another UN agency, and with other groups on the ground. And 2 days later, Israel shoots kills their people. I wonder, I mean, this is speculative, but could that have been a message from Israel, which is that if you're going to work here, you do it under our rules, and you don't work with UNRWA, and you don't talk nicely about UNRWA or anyone else? I don't know. And then another possibility, whether intended or not, what this has done is consolidate the legitimacy and popularity of World Central Kitchen. So there's an effective rallying around. Let's do more to support World Central Kitchen and get them into Gaza. And that sympathy for the murdered workers translates into more political support for World Central Kitchen. Maybe it's too Machiavellian to suggest that the Israelis did that deliberately, but that's certainly one of the dangerous unintended effects of this.
And as well, as I mentioned in the live report, and as Tamara reported in her post that was just published, it is, the killing of the aid workers has prompted other agencies like ANERA to turn their ships around and go back to Cyprus. While aid, the couple of tons of aid that could have been delivered through other organizations like ANERA is now on hold. Meanwhile, the thousands of aid trucks at the crossings are still not being let in. So it's exacerbating an already precarious situation for people who, are starving. And it's not the brink of famine anymore. People are starving across Gaza.
Yeah, I've got a couple of points I want to make about this. The first is just to show, related to the question that Ali related, that is being asked by people, that, if World Central Kitchen is so close to the Israelis, then why would the Israelis deliberately target them? Let's not forget, what the Israelis have been doing to their own civilians, and even in some cases soldiers, since the 7th of October, which is mass Hannibal, which is, in the words of the Israeli military, an immense amount of friendly fire. And there was a new statement by a new Israeli spokesperson to the English language media, whose name is David Mensa, which was made yesterday. So we've got the video clip of that. If you could play that tomorrow now.
Including one Australian, have been killed by an Israeli airstrike in Gaza. The Prime Minister Anthony Albanese demanding full accountability, calling in the ambassador to explain. That hasn't happened yet. But let's go live to Tel Aviv now. Joining us is the Israeli government spokesperson, David Mensa. David, thanks for your time this evening, Why was a marked aid truck on a route approved by Israel hit by a rocket?
Well, firstly, Pete, thank you for having me on, and good morning to you and to all of your viewers. Look, this is an absolutely tragic occurrence, and from all sections of society here in Israel, from the president to the prime minister to the defense minister to Daniel Hagari, who's the spokesman for the Israeli Defense Forces, they've all expressed their grief at this terrible occurrence. Something tragic has happened, and we've started an investigation to make sure we find out exactly what's happened. The reason it's so tragic is because we were working so closely with WCK. They've got such an important role in ensuring that aid goes directly to the people that need it most Gazans that need it most, and not the genocidal terror organization of Hamas. So it's a tragic occurrence. We're going to get to the bottom of what's happened, but there is a palpable sense of grief here in Israel about this occurrence. We must make sure that this never happens again.
Yeah, so that route was approved by Israel, though. So back to the question, you knew the truck was there, you knew it was an aid truck. Why was it hit?
Well, the way we're treating this right now is a friendly fire example, because that's exactly how we feel. We're going to investigate precisely what happens. Look, it's a war. It's a tragic war. It's not a war that we wanted or...
Okay, thanks.
Wow.
Yeah, a friendly fire occurrence is what he called it. So, I mean, I think that is a really telling turn of phrase, because he's stating that we, as the Israelis, consider World Central Kitchen to be part of our allied forces, and it's not unusual for the Israelis to kill their own in a sense. So it's they're kind of saying it in their own words there.
Yeah. I expect that this story has more legs, and we will be learning much more about World Central Kitchen and its various relationships with the people in charge of the genocide. But is there?
I just want to make one more point about this, because there is this impulse that people have that is natural. We all feel it. People want to help. So they say, well, who can I donate to? Well, the point is, there are great organizations, but we can't individually donate our way out of this famine, this starvation in Gaza. This is being done deliberately. And what is needed is maximum political pressure from people on their governments to end the effort, the US-led effort, the US-Israeli effort to destroy UNRWA. UNRWA is the only agency that has been there for 75 years, that has the infrastructure and the expertise to provide basic services, food, humanitarian needs, not to a few thousand people here and there, not to one part of Gaza, but to the entire territory and to the entire population. And they are deliberately being prevented from doing that by the United States and Israel for political genocidal reasons. We cannot lose focus on that.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you so much, Ali, Asa, John, for this discussion.
Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit like, leave a comment. These engagements help us with the YouTube algorithm, and it helps us to get around Silicon Valley censorship as much as possible. It does make a difference. You can also support our journalism by going to electronicintifada.net and clicking on donate now. Thank you.